talk
So
about it.
I love the idea of inclusion from a number of different perspectives. And I think what makes it hard for Christians in business is when we hear inclusion, it's almost forced upon us, but you have to do inclusion this way. And they give you a specific way.
Which is ironic,
And
right?
we're like,
It's a
I disagree with
It's
that.
a prescriptive way to do inclusion, which is an oxymoron.
Mhm. And I think this is just a guess. I think 95% of inclusion is really, really easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you read scripture, the number one inclusion we see in scripture all the time is eating and drinking.
Yeah.
Jesus would invite people,
Yeah.
let's eat together. That's pretty, usually, you could disagree on food, but that's a nice way of including people. Both of us love to run, and we're members of running groups. That's a way of including certain people in that tribe. People are meant to be part of tribes. So you think of a Christian business, how can you get people to be part of included, knowing that we come from different perspectives?
Yeah.
So what do you think of when you think of inclusion in a business perspective?
Yeah, I think so. I think the rub for people of faith and people who, again, this is assumes that you have spent considerable time scrubbing your own life from bigotry, hatred, which easily mix with judgment against sin. So let's call that out, right?
Okay.
That there's historically the church has done a pretty bad job of mixing that they would say love the sin or hate the sin with this freedom to be hateful and bigoted, right? Versus just looking at the ways that Scripture talks about lifestyle and just recognizing in a much less intense way just this recognition of there are lifestyles and there are choices and there are things people may choose or feel like their identity is wrapped up in for lots of reasons, right? That maybe even just that's how they feel like they grew up and how they were made, that you're not having to affirm a sin or a lifestyle while also accepting the individual, right? And that's a hard way to sort of manage and go through that. But I think that's the way that Christian business leaders can try to set these things up for conversations and dialogue without necessarily as a business having to affirm an aspect of inclusion or affirm some broad agenda. Like we talked to him about that a little bit around the Black Lives Matter agenda. How do I position myself against racism, which I think is very biblical, without necessarily affirming a very broad agenda of one particular aspect of that in our society, where I might have some challenges. So I think it's having one-on-one conversations, it's having hard conversations, and it's leading well around these things, and that's how you become a very inclusive place while recognizing we have some different choices that we make in the society we live in, and there's some, it's just part of reality too.